Hi, folks, and welcome back here to Hornet Studios. And sorry, we've had some technical difficulties here trying to get the stream all figured out here. Struggling with the internet here, Goddard, but I think we got it all figured out, Austin. And that was a solid first half by the Hornets. 29-22 is the score right now, currently. And this is a really good Goddard team, as we've talked about. 8-5 is their record compared to the Hornets, who have, I believe, 4 wins now. And they've struggled so far, but they've really picked up the pace and improved quite a bit in the late half of the season. And I think Goddard has really underestimated this Hornets team, which is big to see. 13 points produced in the first quarter, and then obviously the rest in the second quarter. And those are really good numbers, especially against a Goddard team like that. They've almost reached the score in one half that the score was last time. The final last time was 39-26, and a really solid first half by this team. And Austin, what did you see there in the first half by this women's team?
Well, Goddard came out into the zone, Caleb, and the Hornets were able to find the high post. Cassie Kinnenberg had a big first half. I believe she has 8 points, and two of those shots coming from, or she has 9 points, excuse me. Two of those shots coming from the free throw line, just turnaround jumpers, and then a couple times utilizing her inside, the Hornets did. And then she found kick-out pass. The Hornets have hit 3 threes in this game, and Hallie Britton hitting 2 of them. And Ranzow hitting the other. The Hornets have played superb inside-out game, and in the first half, when I was commentating this game, even though you guys weren't able to see it, what I mentioned multiple times was that the Hornets were able to move the ball and were not stagnant. And so hopefully in this second half they keep up with that and keep moving the ball around and don't stay in one place. They need to put the ball on the floor, especially to get past this defense, which it now looks like Goddard is trying to trap the first pass. And I know our boys, the Valley Center boys, do this, and it's a great technique to try to get somebody kind of on their toes a little bit, as Ranzow hits that left-handed floater right there to get the half started for the Hornets.
Well, and that's the thing, I think. As I said, Goddard really underestimated this Hornets team. Last time they saw them, this is really a stale team, a stagnant, non-moving team, like you said, Austin. And now they've come out and they've seriously improved over the course of the season. And so because of that, they're having to adjust to the movement, adjust to a lot more offensive movement from the Hornets, and it's really caught them off guard. Now the problem for the Hornets is going to be, we know that Goddard has good coaches, good strategizing, and so they're going to have to find some way to keep this Goddard team on their toes and always be switching something up, always be changing something on the offensive side, because now Goddard knows what's coming. They know how to defend it and how to stop it, and Hornets are going to have to continue to get creative.
When it starts on the defensive end, as the Hornets cause the turnover right there, then on the other end, as I was saying that, Hallie Britton and one of the Goddard, I believe it was Vang, who got caught up with a jump ball, and the possession goes to Goddard. So the Hornets don't capitalize off the turnover, but that's something they're going to have to do. A reminder against that Eisenhower team in last week's game, or Tuesday's game, excuse me, the Hornets only allowed 2 points, and that was what propelled them to a victory. And so they have to be able to score on their end and then defend on the other end. As Vang misses a rebound right there from the Hornets, and they'll have a chance to bring it within one possession as they're down 5 on this possession right here.
Well, one thing I talked about is this is a team in Goddard that's not used to being down. Yeah, they may have 5 losses, but most of their losses they've been up most of the game and then end up losing those leads. And so this is a team that's not used to being down on the scoreboard, or at least playing a bad game against a team that they typically dominate. And so because of that, all you really have to do to get in their heads is continue to play consistent basketball. You keep the margin on the scoreboard at a decent margin, a margin enough for you to make a comeback, and you do that the full game, that's really going to get in the head of this Goddard Lions team.
Hacker on the inside, missed the layup, and then she will foul far away from the basket. And if you're the Hornets, you like to see that. And like you said, this Goddard team, I know you mentioned it before we were live broadcasting, but this Goddard team was 8-2 and then they've dropped 3 games in their last 3 games. So they're struggling right now, and if it's a time that the Hornets can come out, they're playing good, solid basketball, they could come out and win a big league game, only down 5, it's very possible that they can get things rolling, especially heading into the part of the season where it matters most, and that's sub-state and the state tournaments. So these I believe these next few games are going to be the biggest of the season for the Hornets, especially with the struggles they've had early on. Now they're starting to find their rhythm, find Cassie Kinnenberg, and she's been kind of the rock of this team for the last 2 years. She gets a bucket right there, but she's having a big impact here as of late.
Well, that's the thing, Austin. As you said, heat up to the end of the season, and that really shows consistent improvement. I attribute it, when I think about this kind of thing, I think a lot about the 2018 Boston Red Sox. They heated up towards the end of the season, and because of that, they were able to win the World Series. And I know the Hornets aren't likely contenders for a state championship, but that's all you need to do is heat up towards the end of the season, and then you might have a solid shot at least winning your first game, or at least grabbing a first-round home game, if anything. And that's what they want to do, is heat up towards the end of the season, and then hopefully carry that into into seasons to come. So that's big, because that's how you create a consistent basketball program, is always continue to improve, and then heat up at the end of the season so you can carry it into next year.
Well, Caleb, like you mentioned before an earlier broadcast, is that Coach Breheim says even though there's 5 seniors, this is a rebuilding year, as Ali Koash missed on the layup right there. But he's really excited for the young talent that's coming up, and if they can learn from these seniors, Kinnenberg being one of the best leaders on the team. I've talked to some of the players before. There's sometimes they think that she's mad at her, but really she's just getting onto them for the simple things, because I think that's the biggest thing with this basketball team right now, is the little things that are making them lose games. And as of late, they've started doing the little things right, and they're starting to see wins in the win column and closer games coming down the stretch against good teams.
Well, and that's one of those things. There's not a more perfect year to brand a rebuilding year. You have 4 solid seniors who have been in the program for quite a while, have a lot of varsity experience and a lot of things to teach. And then you have a strong freshman and sophomore class, that has a lot of talent. The only thing is that it's raw and it hasn't reached its full potential yet. So this is a perfect basketball team right here, exactly what you want for a rebuilding year. Good leaders, and if they continue to lead throughout the course of the season, then this can become a consistent winning basketball program like Coach Breheim wants to see.
Hackerot makes that free throw. 31-26 our score. 3:07 left. Koash with it. Needens in the high post, and as Koash found Kinnenberg near the block, it would be a foul by Schroeder. Underneath their own basket are the Hornets. Kinnenberg trying to find, that was Ranzow trying to find Kinnenberg. And here are the Hornets. Dawson finds Koash up top. Hornets haven't shot a 3 in the second half after hitting 3 in the first half. Here is Needens. Jumper from the top, from the free throw line. She knocks it down to bring it within 3.
Well, and that's all that was. We talked about it in the first half. Cassie Kinnenberg trying to hit those mid-range jumpers, and then the Hornets are trying to slip her into the deep post rather than the high post. She was able to hit that, and so because of that, as you said in the first half, Austin, that defense tends to come up and try and defend her. A foul on the play, but that defense comes up, and because of that, that's the perfect time to send Cassie Kinnenberg right back into that deep post. Well, Goddard, with good coaches, understands their own weaknesses. They come up, and so the Hornets are trying to push back against them. So rather than forcing the ball to Kinnenberg, which is where they want to go, they'll give it to Needens, who's playing forward right now, and let her get those mid-range jumpers to hopefully open up Kinnenberg in the fourth quarter.
And right there, Kinnenberg almost had it underneath, but the ball goes out of bounds, tipped by Schroeder, so it'll be Hornet ball underneath their own bucket once again. Ranzau set to pass it in. She's going to find Kinneberg in the from three in the corner. Off the mark, rebounded by Hackerott, and she will be fouled by number 4, Kylie Dawson. That's her first personal. Something that happened in the first half was each team only had 2 fouls heading into the locker room. This half, there is 3 fouls committed by the Lions, 2 committed by your Hornets. But not a lot of fouling going on in this game, even though it's, for the most part, a high-paced game, especially for what the Hornets like to play. They don't like to play at a super fast pace, and they're doing a great job of it. They're doing a great job of controlling the tempo in this game. Checking in for Valley Center is going to be number 11, Kanissa Meyer. She'll take the place of Olivia Needens, who's done great as of late here for the Hornets.
Well, and you mentioned not a lot of fouls, and I attribute that to consistent improvement. The Hornets in the beginning of the season, I remember talking about it quite often, is the foul troubles that they found some of their star players in quite often. And they continue to play aggressive defense, and because of that they fouled. But over time you learn how to play aggressive defense, but yet play to the refs you already have. Ali Koash knocks down a three-point shot. But over time, you learn to play aggressive defense and also play to your refs, and that's why their fouling has shot down, exponentially shot down. But also their defense has just gone up, and they're really improving over time. And as you said, Austin, focusing on those little things. Fouling is one of those little things that they focused on, and because of that, they've been able to improve much more.
An offensive board by Schroeder. And the ball game's tied up at 31. This Goddard team has not been able to finish here in this third quarter underneath the bucket, and it's helping the Hornets right now. We have Kylie Dawson at the top of the key with 34 seconds left. Let's see if the Hornets will try to hold it for the last possession of the third quarter and try to get momentum heading into the fourth and final quarter.
Well, 2 points so far scored by this Goddard team in the third quarter, and obviously it's not done yet, but that's exactly what the Hornets did last week against Eisenhower, and so they're on track to get a win. I don't want to jinx them, but they have a solid shot at doing that. They've had that shutdown defensive quarter they needed, and then that consistent offensive quarter they needed, and they're set up for a good fourth quarter. And try to be put up there by Koash, but in time, it's not going to fall. Final score, third quarter score, 31-31 tie ball game here with an incredible Lions team. This Hornets team has played amazing. We'll be back here at Hornet Studios for the fourth and final 8 minutes of this game. And we're back here, and 1 quarter gone in the second half. 31 all your score. 8 points scored there, 9 points scored there by your Hornets in the third quarter, and 2 by this Goddard team. And that's not a number you ever see by this Goddard team, ever. Not rarely, ever, hardly at all in a single game so far this season. And Hornets are in their head, to say the least. That's one of those biggest things, is you're playing a good team and you're in their head. Now you have to take advantage of it. If you're the Hornets, you have a lot to work with, a lot of room to work with, and so because of that, you need to start pushing back and in a good rate.
Well, it'll be Hornet ball, and they're taking their time on this possession. No time to rush, as they are in control of the momentum right now. And if you allow 2 points in a quarter, you set yourself up, especially if it's the third quarter, you set yourself up to be able to win a ball game. Here are the Hornets on this possession, the first possession of the fourth quarter, Off the mark right there from three was Kinnenberg, rebounded by Hackerott, and they'll run up the floor. Nunez, Sullivan, and Hackerott are all shooters for this Goddard team. They had a big first half, haven't done anything here in the second half. Right there, it'll be a foul called on Allie Koash as she was trying to defend Hackerott, not let the ball get to her. And it'll be Goddard ball underneath their own bucket.
Well, if I see one thing the Hornets struggle with, and they've struggled with this all season in years past as well, is that's carrying momentum. You had a good third quarter, and because of that, you have to carry that momentum that you've earned. You've earned a lot of it in this tough arena to play in, and because of that, you have to carry that into the fourth quarter. That is such a valuable thing to do, and it's rarely noticed, but it's one of the biggest parts of winning a game like this one. A very talented Lions team, and so because of that, you have to carry momentum into this fourth quarter and keep rolling on both sides of the ball, keep forcing turnovers, and keep producing consistent offense, and that's going to be really the biggest part of a Hornets possible win here tonight.
Well, Kate Hackerott traveled right there, and it was Hallie Britton and Olivia Needens who checked in for the Hornets. Needens having a great game defensively and getting rebounds, also scored early. Here's Dawson at the top of the key, thought about the three. She'll drive in with the right hand off the mark, and the Coffeyville commit is headed to the free throw line for the Hornets to try to take a lead here with 6:15 left in the fourth quarter.
And if you're Dawson, these are big free throws here, not only here, but for the future of this Hornets team. And there she goes, giving the Hornets a lead. But if she can hit these late in the fourth quarter, foul totals hopefully racking up a little bit more here for Goddard. If she can knock those down, being one of the most fouled players on this Hornets team, she can add a lot of valuability to her team. Anna Oliverson checks in for Kinnenberg, and here's her crunch time right here, Austin. These are very valuable minutes for any player, especially a player like Oliverson, who doesn't get a lot of those minutes. So right now it's proving grounds for her. If she can prove herself and play good, consistent basketball, then she can solidify a possible solid backup role and maybe a starting position next year.
So it'll be Lion ball on the floor for the Hornets as Dawson, Britton, Ranzow, Oliverson, and Needens. Dawson playing great defense on Sullivan, gets a steal. Finds Needens over to Ranzow, and she'll slow things down for the Hornets. They have a 2-point lead. Over to Britton to Needens. Here they're setting things up, trying to find Oliverson inside.
Well, I talked about it last week, Austin. One thing that amazes me about Kylie Dawson is her true athleticism on the defensive side. She can take anything and manage to turn it into a turnover somehow, some way, and she did it there, and she continues to do it. She's done it all season, and she really adds a lot to this team with that athleticism.
And we'll have a timeout called by the Hornets. Kinnenberg checking in after this timeout, and we have a 4-point lead by your Hornets. We'll be back when play resumes. And after that timeout, it will be Goddard ball. Hornets getting back on defense. playing great basketball. And I think the biggest part of this team right now is the intensity they're playing with. And they know they can win this ball game. It's not like earlier in the season when they got down big and just they would slow it down and try to run things through. Now they're playing with intensity. They're going up the floor, scoring fast. Ranzow drive baseline. You don't see that too often, especially when they're not in the lead. And so they have a 2-point lead. Dangerous pass right there. The ball gets knocked out, and the Hornets reset on this possession. Ranzow with it.
Well, offensive boards are so valuable, especially late here, because you have a slim lead and you're doing whatever you can to get more points on the board to extend this lead. And then also you want to waste as much time as possible. There's 4 minutes and 30 seconds remaining here, and you want to waste every single second of that while also putting up boards. As you said, Austin, a dangerous pass, but fortunately they were able to recover from their mistake, and they know that it's not going to happen again because that's the expectation if they want to win here.
So the Hornets still retaining possession. 4:04 left in the ball game. Ranzow, crossover, finds Dawson. She'll drive in with the right hand. Kylie Dawson goes up, doesn't get her first attempt, gets fouled on the rebound, and it'll be Hornet ball underneath their own bucket. Ranzow going to pass it in. That'll be a foul called on Sullivan. That's her first personal. 16 fouls for the Lions. One more foul. The Hornets are shooting free throws. And Ranzow turned it over off miscommunication from Kylie Dawson. She thought she was going to keep running. Dawson wanted to cut off of Nunez. It'll be Goddard ball. Sullivan's bringing it up for the Lions once again. Nunez has been quiet since the first half. Hasn't got anything in the second half. She had 8 in the first half. Hackerot blocked on her first attempt. Second attempt ties the ball game up at 35.
Well, I may be seeing something that Coach Freeheim isn't, or vice versa, but I was wondering why he did call that timeout, and because of that, these Hornets have looked kind of lackadaisical on the defensive side. They're going to have to change that mindset because we know that this Goddard offense can produce at incredible rates, and they need to stop something here. They've allowed 2 buckets in a row, and that can't happen if you want to win this game.
And the way to get or run started is start scoring in transition offense. As Kylie Dawson did that just a moment ago. Put the Hornets up by 2. Ali Coas checks in for Britton. And we'll have a timeout called by the Goddard Lions. It'll be a full timeout. We'll be back when play resumes after a short commercial break.
And we're back here, Austin, and it's already starting to get loud in this gym. If there's one thing that both of us remember from this gym very vividly is how loud that band is. This is a small gym, and it's going to echo really bad and really gets in the players' heads, but that's one of those things is they haven't started playing so far. They've really been setting up during this girls' game, but it really takes effect during that men's game, a men's game that will be going on in about 25 minutes to half an hour, so make sure to tune in for that as well.
And Caleb, just to talk about the men's game real quick, boy, am I excited for that. The Hornets have been playing good basketball for the second half of the season, but they haven't been able to pick up many wins. They're going to have a big one tonight as Goddard is not doing so hot this season, only 1 win on the season. This could be a big statement win for the boys squad. But as of right now, we have 2:42 left in this women's matchup as Hackerot finds Vang on the inside. Can't get the bucket to go. Rebounded by Olivia Needens once again. And the Hornets retain possession with the 2-point lead. 37-35 our score. Coash, dangerous pass by Ranzow. And that'll be a foul called on the Lions. And Coash is headed to the line shooting a 1-and-1 for the Hornets.
Well, rebounds right here are so valuable. That's an incredible rebound there by Olivia Needens. Rebounded it under pressure, and that was huge there for this Hornets team. You go down, you get fouled, and not only do you get in the bonus, but you get Ali Coash shooting free throws, an equation that you like. And because of that, you're stopping them on the defensive side of the ball, but also you're getting an opportunity on the offensive side of the ball, which is just incredible to see. Rebounds on both the offensive side and defensive side are going to be so valuable here late in this game.
So it is a 3-point lead. Dawson, a steal. Fast break. She'll put it up, no foul. Nunez gets the rebound. Here is Kylie Dawson once again, and almost causes a steal as she does not agree with that call. Nunez will be called, Dawson will be called for the foul, but Nunez almost lost it. That could have been a big momentum shifter for the Hornets as they turn the ball over, and then Dawson would turn the ball over again for the Hornets. On the floor, it's Nunez, guarded by Coash. Back to Sullivan. Sullivan hit 1-3 earlier. She drives in, finds Hackerot. Hackerot with the right-handed layup gets it to go. 1-point deficit for the Lions. 1:35 left in the ballgame.
Well, we saw in the first half, or specifically the second quarter, when Goddard was going off, the problem was that the Hornets were hitting 2-point shots on the offensive side, and Goddard was hitting 3-point shots. Well, the reason the Hornets are up right now is because they've hit so many, or they've been able to continue making those field goals, those 2-point shots, but they've also shut down Goddard from the 3-point line. That has been a big part of their equation to success, shutting down this team from the 3-point line. And for every team, it really should be against this Goddard team, because that's what kills other teams against this Goddard team, and the Hornets have done an incredible job of it.
Well, with under a minute to play, 55.8 seconds to be exact, and we'll have a timeout called by Coach Trent Preheim, and the Hornets will be back for the finish of this exciting matchup. And with 55.8 seconds left, the Hornets have played good basketball so far. Only allowing 2 points in that third quarter has really been the biggest part of this game. It's been their defense, and this is the second game in a row they've only allowed 2 points heading out after halftime. And at the beginning of the season, Caleb, if you remember, their problem was after halftime, the other team would come out and just obliterate them in the third quarter. And so far, they've grown, and they've shown the growth in that aspect, and that's why they're putting themselves into these situations where they have a chance to win at the end of the game. They're up by 1 with 42 seconds left. Kylie Dawson will be fouled by Nunez.
Well, and that's one of the things, Austin, I was very worried about that halftime locker room. I know the creativity of these coaches. They just have incredible minds for the game of basketball, and it's just incredible to see all the creative plays they come up with. And yet, even through that all, the Hornets were still able to hold them to 2 points, which is just incredible and shows how much they've grown. They've grown so much through the course of this season. And so, as you said at the beginning of the season, they've really got obliterated typically during the third quarter, and now they're able to hold some of the best minds in basketball, or at least in the AVCTL Division II, to 2 points in the third quarter. And I know these coaches have to be pretty mad about that one, but also Trent Preheim has to be really happy about that one, because he knows the defensive prowess of his girls and how that can lead them to a couple more victories, hopefully, before the end of the season.
Well, Kylie Dawson missed her free throw, ball went out of bounds, stayed with the Hornets while you were talking, Caleb. She'll have another chance at the line. That time off the mark. Olivia Neaton's fighting Hackerott for it, and she will find Sullivan. Brooke Sullivan going to slow things down. Guarded by Dawson, and then as the pass got to Hackerott, Coash tried to deny it. 24.8 seconds left. Checking in is Vang, Shia Vang, once again, and we'll have a timeout called by Goddard. Stay tuned right here on Hornet Studios for an exciting finish coming up. So it'll be Goddard ball underneath their own bucket. Brooke Sullivan set to pass it in for the Lions. She'll find Cade Hackerott underneath, and that'll be a foul, as it looked like Coash had all ball. She had her hand on the ball. And if they are going to get Coash, which they do, if anything, I believe it would have been a foul called on Kinnenberg underneath, because Coash, from our angle, had the ball in her hand too. The refs are going to talk about it because maybe they see something different.
Well, that's one thing I love about this girls team. I don't know if it's a foul or not quite yet, but we'll know in just a second. But they have a short memory. That might be a bad call, and it is a foul called on Ali Coash. But that's one of those things, is it might be a bad call, but they have a short memory. They understand if they let that hang on to them on the offensive side of the court, then they're going to end up losing this game. But if they let it go, they understand it's human error. That's part of sports. If they let that be, then they have a solid shot at winning this game. They just need to let that foul go and understand it's part of life. It's part of basketball.
Well, Cade Hackerott missed her first free throw, and that's awesome to see if you're the Hornets. She misses her second. Rebounding is important. Olivia Needon's got the rebound, and they're going to have to foul. With 19.1 seconds left on the clock, Riley Ranzow headed to the free throw line. These are important free throws, to say the least, for the Hornets. This could change the trajectory of their season. And here is Ranzow to put them up by 2. Off the mark, off the back of the rim.
Well, that's one of those things is for the men's game, the first thing that Coach Unruh said during practice was respect your opponent, and that's exactly what Goddard hasn't done. They did not respect their opponent, and because of that, they're down here. And I won't know the final until 15 seconds finish off, but Goddard has not respected their opponent so far, and it might make them pay for it.
On the inside, Hackerott's fouled once more. She has 2 big free throws coming up for her squad, and you know, like you said, Caleb, this is kind of how this Goddard team's kind of thinking the same thing about what the Hornets are thinking of the men's Goddard team, and so we'll see that game coming up. But as for now, we have 8.7 seconds left. Hackerott missed her first free throw. The best she can do is tie the ball game up. She's missed 3 straight. These are going to be this next free throw is going to be big for the Lions, and if you're the Hornets, you have to rebound and get the ball into an outlet pass into someone who can make free throws. We'll be back for the final 8.7 seconds left here in a minute. And on the floor for the Hornets, we'll have Koash, Ranzow, Dawson, Needens, and Kinnenberg. Hornets going to have to rebound. The only one that is on the inside is Vang for the Lions. Here's Hakarat's free throw coming up. Rolls in and out, rebounded by the Hornets. Ranzow has another chance. These are going to be even bigger free throws because there's likely only one more possession left if Goddard gets the ball. And so if the Hornets can go up by 3 right here, that'll be the best situation, but 2 will do its job too if you are the Hornets. Just have to make one of these free throws. Here's Ranzow's first, off the mark.
Well, you do a solid job last week of beating your opponent in Eisenhower, which we knew had more talented players than them and a better record than them. But that's one of those things, is that they still managed to beat them. This is a team that will fight until the very last second of the game, and that's one thing I love about this team. And they've done the same against this Goddard team. They proved themselves a little bit more last week, and right now can be a huge statement. These 5.7 seconds in this fourth quarter are so valuable to this season outcome right here, and it can go one way or it can go another. And if Ranzow makes this, or they do end up holding on to this lead for a win, it can affect them so tremendously, give other teams so much more respect for them, and keep them going, or keep them going into late in the season. Because I remember Austin last year is that this Hornets team had 2 total wins on the season, and at the end of the season they were really just not motivated to do anything. And come playoff time, they had to play Arc City, a team who they definitely could have beat, but they just didn't play very hard, and because of that, they ended up losing in the first round of the playoffs. But as you said, you heat up late in the season, and it becomes so valuable, and this can really affect the whole season outcome.
Well, some of the most important free throws for Ranzow right here of the season. And she knocks it down. It's a 2-point lead, 37-39, 5 seconds left. Sullivan with it. She's going to drive into the lane. And no foul. And the Hornets, as it stands right now, have won the ball game. The refs are going to talk things over. And the ball went out of bounds. That will be the ball game. Your Hornets knock off this Goddard Lions squad 39-37, and a big win if you are the Hornet basketball squad. They move to 5 wins on the season, and they're totally rebuilding year, and they're doing a great job. This could affect the rest of their season. This is a big win. That'll do it. And for the women's matchup, we'll be back in about 20 minutes for the start of the men's matchup as your Valley Center Hornets take on the 1-12 Goddard Lions.
Hi, folks, and welcome back here to Hornet Studios. And we're about a minute and a half away from getting this varsity matchup underway between the Goddard Lions, the men's team, and your Valley Center Hornets. And this really stuck out to me, Austin. The first words that Coach Unrau said to his team in practice on Wednesday after their loss to Eisenhower was respect your opponent. And if they don't respect their opponent, then it will it's likely going to lead to an unfortunate loss here for the Hornets. As we've seen in the past, when they don't respect their opponents, that being a game like Arc City, when they don't respect their opponents, it's really tough to win games. And another difference, we'll do the national anthem first, but we'll get right back to pregame afterwards.
Gentlemen, please remove your hat.
And we're back here. That was the Goddard High School Madrigals, but so this Goddard Lions team coming in at 1-12, a struggling team. And one thing I saw on their schedule that really was tough to see from them, tough to see from this Goddard team, they had lost to the Wichita Defenders, which is a homeschool team. That really says a lot about them. Their only victory coming against that was Wichita North is who they beat. And they've added quite a few new players here. Austin is two that we've seen, or two that we didn't see in the last game, and they're going to be running a 1-1-3 on defense. 3 guys in the post, 2 guys on the block, and that's going to be big to see. Trying to battle in the post. First off here for the Hornets, Eli Isaacs, and first off here for Goddard Lions, that's number 12, Caden Hofer. And here for the Hornets, number 3, Mason Burns. And next up here for Goddard Lions, number 15, Blake Mitchell. And Mitchell is one of those guys we didn't see in last time's matchup. And here's the shooter, Jacob Byrne. Byrne has been on a kind of a cold streak as of late. Shot 14% from three-point range 2 games ago and 0% last game. Didn't make a single three, which is a rare sight. He had 2 total points in the game for Goddard, number 30, Jaden Wiley. And here's the score. That's number 20, Gabe Phillips. We saw last week the impact he had on the team. Just incredible, the momentum and energy that he brings to this floor every single time. And here, number 32, Carter Morrow. And when you see him, you can't help but ask, how's the weather up there? At 6'9", that's number 23, Braden Gray. And rounding off this roster is Peyton Crawford for Goddard Lions. And this team, we talked about them respecting their opponent, and if they do respect their opponent, if they play good basketball, this can be a blowout win, a statement win. Hornets haven't played good basketball since January Jam against May South. Those 2 games, they haven't done what they've tried to do on the offensive and defensive side of the ball here in their own home gym, which is tough to see, especially against good teams like Andover and Eisenhower, where you have to be on top of your game at all times. They haven't been on top of their games in the past 2 games. If they can find their groove, find their rhythm, find a place to dig their feet in the ground, per se, in this second half of the season, then this can be big, a big statement win that can hopefully propel them to future victories But if they can't find that footing right here tonight, it can negatively affect their season and see them continue to play the same type of basketball we've seen them play in the past 2 games. This is going to be a big game here for the Hornets for the rest of the season.
Well, Caleb, you talked about respecting your opponent. This Goddard team is a different team that they saw in that first matchup where they almost won by 40. And, you know, they had mentioned that a couple times talking to some of these players, and I said, well, this is a different team, and how are you going to prepare for them? And they all said the same thing. They took it very well. They were like, well, that's the thing. We're going to have to play out our best, especially if we want to get a big win, coming off 2 straight losses against great teams, respectively, Eisenhower and Andover. But this is a team that they can blow out and they can win by a lot. And if they can do that, it'll set them on track for the rest of their season, like you mentioned, as Jacob Byrne misses on his first 3-point attempt, and he's gone ice cold from behind the line. Talking to him throughout school days and more, he tells me he just wants to be able to knock down a 3, and once he sees the ball go through the hoop, he's going to start making more shots. And you know, I think that's going to be the biggest thing tonight, is if he can see the ball go through the hoop, he'll start knocking down more and more. As at the beginning of the season, he was knocking down 5-6 threes a game, and here as of late, it's been 2 and dwindled down to 0 in last May.
When I mentioned his stats in the last 2 games, 14% from the 3-point line 2 games ago, and as you mentioned, didn't make a single one last game, which is really tough to see from him. But as we've seen a lot of times, and there he goes with an assist. Braden Gray is going to get the dunk on that alley-oop play, but that's one of those things we see when the Hornets are struggling, when the other team is going on a run. Oftentimes we see that bucket that we say breaks the ice per se, and he needs to find that bucket that breaks the ice and gets him back to his normal shooting form.
That'll be a block called on Mason Burns. He was trying to draw the charge, but that'll be his first team foul of this game. And it was number 30, Jaden Wiley, who caused it. One thing to note, Braden Gray, who is guarding number 15, Blake Mitchell. Mitchell did not play in that first matchup, and the Hornets like him on film as a inside player, but not as a 3-point shooter. They're letting him have the shot, and he's already shot 2 threes on the game, and he's missed both. And if you're Braden Gray, you may have to get out a little if you're going to keep letting him shoot those threes. He may keep missing them, or he may make a couple. So Braden Gray is going to have to adjust. But you know, as a defensive scheme, the Hornets are really trying to eliminate some of those inside game, like Blake Mitchell just did right there, as he ties the game up at 2. But the Hornets want to eliminate the inside game more than anything. Here is the Hornets on offense trying to regain a lead.
Well, if there's one thing I know about Goddard Athletics, it's that they're incredible at the sports of football and wrestling. And so overall, I can infer that this is a very athletic team. And though they may not have A-grade basketball skills, they're very athletic, as we saw on the defensive side of the ball. They're going to be able to jump up and make plays, get boards. Blake Mitchell with an and one, and he just out-rebounded 6'9" Braden Gray. That really shows the athleticism of this Goddard team.
Well, on the floor is now Cameron Moses, who played just very few minutes in that first matchup against Goddard, did he? It's Isaacs with the ball. The Hornets have played a little bit sloppy so far in this matchup, but Gabe Phillips finding the high post did not travel. It looked like he may have. And Mason Burns with the jump shot floater. He ties the ball game up. That's what Mason Burns does, averaging 1.4 points on the season. So he's not much of a scorer for the Hornets, but what he does well is get inside the paint, throw up a floater, or find one of his teammates.
Well, that's one of those things we've talked about in the past as Blake Mitchell gets his 3rd consecutive bucket. But that's one of those things in high school, it's 3-point shots or it's layups. And so when you have the ability to make those jump shots consistently, then you can produce on the offensive side, because that's not typically where you're making shots. So that's where the defense will give you a little bit more space. We've seen the jumper percentage just increased drastically, and that's all because Hornets are putting the time in the gym to hit those fadeaway jumpers, hit those pull-up jumpers, because they know that's where they're given the most space, that's where they're given the least amount of coverage, and that's where they can make the most open shots.
Well, Isaac's got a steal right there. Checking in for the game is number 33, Josh Dessenberger, number 5, Braden Dalrymple, and number 22, Ray Flora. One thing about Braden Dalrymple, he scored 15 points in, I believe it was the last game of the January Jam tournament. No, excuse me, it was against May South, first game after the January Jam tournament. And Braden Dalrymple is a big factor coming off the bench for the Hornets, along with Ray Flora. Ray Flora, we don't talk about too much, especially on the offensive end, but he's done a great job for the Hornets. We'll have a timeout called by the Lions. We'll be back. We're tied 6-6. We'll be back with 3:49 left on the clock. And after that timeout, it's going to be Goddard Lion ball. Moses set to pass it in to number 2, Soren Carr. Carr had a big game in the Hornets' first matchup, hit a couple of threes, and that's where he was important for them. Isaacs, a breakaway layup, gets it to go. That's one thing the Hornets have been improving on, is getting the steals on the defensive end and getting a bunch of transition offense going. They're scoring a lot more points in doing that, and if they want to succeed in tonight's matchup, they're going to have to get steals and run the floor. Off the mark twice by the Lions, and then Crawford's going to end up getting the points, ties the ball game up at 8.
Well, possession and possession again. We see 3 people in the paint there, and there goes Jacob Byrne. Byrne gets the 3-point shot, and that might be the ice we need to see him breaking, but you see why 3 people need to be around the net at all times for Goddard, and that's simply because they struggle to finish shots. They oftentimes put up 3 or 4 shots and get offensive boards before they make the basket, and that's what they're going to need every time. So rebounding can almost completely shut off this offense, and that's what the Hornets need to do to win here tonight.
It'll be a foul called on Ray Flores. He was on the floor, and it looked like he held the leg of Moses. Checking in is number 23, Gray, and number 20, Gabe Phillips, along with number 4, Marion Pons. One thing about Pons is he's averaging 1.4 points, 2 for the Hornets, but his defense and his athleticism is what gives him the advantage. Ray Flora draws a charge right there. He's going up on the charge wall in the locker room at Valley Center. I'm in that locker room every day, and you love to see that there's more and more screenshots going up on that wall, and Ray Flora and Mason Burns are all but one on this season. They've drawn all the charges but one, and that one was by Jacob Byrne early on in this season.
Well, and that's one of those things we talk about how valuable of a foul it is, because it's one of the few offensive fouls that you can draw on the defensive side of the ball, and that's just a big momentum factor, a big thing. Foul on Marion Pons, but that's one of those things is that if you're away, it silences any crowd noise at all, and when you're at home, the crowd just goes insane. It is such a momentum-shifting foul, and they're only up by 1 here, but they're hoping that that charge with the silenced crowd can hopefully push them over and make them play better.
Well, we've had a lot of home games this year, Caleb, and we noticed some teams travel well, some teams don't. Well, right now the Hornets are traveling well. Isaacs, fast break, gets the crazy layup to go. 3-point lead, 13-10 with 1:45 left in the first quarter. Hornets going to put on some pressure. And then Isaacs almost got a steal. One thing to note, Isaacs had 100 career steals coming into this ball game, and the record is 102. And I believe he just got his second one on that, or no, excuse me, he could have got a second one in the game on that steal right there, but he has one more to tie the career Valley Center career steals record, and he's only a junior, Caleb. So that's pretty impressive to see. Another charge drawn, this time by Jacob Byrne. Just talked about he only had one on the season. There's his second one, and the Hornets will have another opportunity to extend a 3-point lead. Moses back in for the Lions.
Well, and we talked about how athletic this Goddard team is, how aggressive they are. They're running that 1-3-1, and that right there just shows what I'm talking about. A rare defense to see, but they're not the most basketball athletically gifted, and that's the reason that they drive in. They're so aggressive, and I could tell how happy Coach Unruh was to see that on game film this week, because he knew he was going to be putting a lot of screenshots on that wall just because of how aggressive of drivers they are, and he knows that this team has the ability to take advantage of those.
And Phillips finds Braden Gray for a second dunk of the game. Gray has 4 points, and the Hornets are finding things offensively right now. They're putting up the pressure on defense. Blake Mitchell with it. He took over at the early going. And then now number 34, Crawford, has 7 points to his name. Hornets have, they're scoring on the offensive end, but they got to stop this Goddard team on the defensive end. Phillips drives in, another charge called in this ball game. This time it was drawn by Blake Mitchell, and Gabe Phillips picks up a foul. We'll have Mason Burns back in for the Hornets, and then Soren Carr for the Lions.
Well, and we know these are two league rivals that play each other in every single sport, every single thing they do. And so a lot of these people play each other through multiple seasons, and there's a lot of aggression built up on this court. You know that it's a league rival, and both teams want to just completely outright dominate both the other one. And so the Hornets are going to play more aggressive. Goddard's going to play more aggressive. And because of that, we're going to see a lot more charges in this game, as it's already shown, and it's going to continue throughout the course of this game.
Isaacs has it. Over to Burns, who's guarded by Hofer. Inside, Braden Gray was held down with 2.5 seconds left. That'll be a foul on number 24, Moses. Gray at the line, should be shooting two, as they're going to call it a shooting foul. Excuse me, no, they're not going to call it a shooting foul, as Gray was just tipping the ball at the time. Phillips back in for the Hornets. He'll take the place of Pawns. And Hornets have the opportunity to carry the momentum into the second quarter with getting the last shot right here. It's out of bounds off of Soren Carr, 1.4 seconds left. Jacob Byrne set to pass it in for the Hornets. Isaacs back to Byrne, a three from the corner off the mark, and that'll end the first quarter. Your Hornets hanging on to a 2-point lead, 15-13. We'll be back right here on Hornet Studios at the start of the second.
And we're back here at Hornet Studios. 15-13 your score, and we talked about it at the beginning of the game. respecting your opponent is going to be key, and I don't think the Hornets have done that so far. In the first quarter of last time's matchup, 22-2 was the score at the end of the first quarter, and that's just incredible domination by the Hornets, and I haven't seen that here from this team. Yeah, they've had a lot of momentum-shifting plays, but just not that outright domination that we saw last time, and it might be a little bit of the effect that it's an away game, but a 2-point deficit compared to a 20-point deficit, and they're both the same teams. That's not a margin I like, and the Hornets are going to have to find something and change it pretty quick.
Well, Isaac's got steal number 102 right there, and he sets his team up with Phillips with the ball now. Isaacs into the high post. Byrne out to Jacob Byrne. Cross-court pass inside. Good ball movement by the Hornets. Jacob Byrne, a three, good from the same place he made one just a few minutes ago. 18-13 our score.
Well, and that's exactly what the Hornets want to see. You have them in a slump, and that's something they've struggled with against two good teams. Now you have a team that the Hornets are most likely going to dominate. So you give them a couple more shots, let him get hot once more, and try and set your team up to let him rain down the threes in later games. And so not only are you getting an offense set up tonight, but you're trying to stop that cold streak from Byrne for games to come.
Well, one thing about Gabe Phillips as he turns the ball over right there, he doesn't have a problem scoring. He can score anytime he wants to, but one thing he does have a problem is turning the ball over, and he gets frustrated with himself, and then he starts to try to make up for it, and sometimes scores more points, sometimes turns the ball over too much. And so that's one thing we've seen him grow throughout the season, as he doesn't do it as often as he did, especially in that Kingman tournament. But here he is shooting a three right there and missed. Crawford got the rebound, got to Carr. Carr up the floor. Couldn't get it past Braden Gray, and it'll be out of bounds off of the Hornets. Checking back in is Ray Flores. Phillips heads to the bench. Coach Unruh has a word with him. Wants to make sure that nothing is getting into his head, because one thing about Gabe Phillips is he takes everything hard on himself, and a few missed shots can go a long way with him if he doesn't have the right mindset.
Well, and that's one of those things, is he's such a good player because he's so hard on himself. I talked about earlier in the season, he demands perfection from himself. He spends hours upon hours in the gym, and I just tremendously respect him for that. But because of that, because he expects perfection from himself, as you said, he is pretty hard on himself, and a lot of things tend to get in his head. But that's one of those things, is it's basketball. It's a high-paced game. A lot of things go wrong, but you have to have a short memory. We've seen the Hornets struggle to do that earlier in the season with a lot of foul calls that they don't like. And overall, you have to have a short memory. It's a requirement for a winning basketball team.
It'll be a foul called on number 24, Moses. That's his second personal. Underneath the basket is Isaacs. Set to pass it in. Finds Byrne underneath. He'll go up, and one for Jacob Byrne. He's headed to the free throw line to try to extend a 5-point lead that he just got on that possession.
Well, 10 points so far here from Byrne, looking to make it 11. Last game he had 2, and that's a number you never see on the stat line of Jacob Byrne, and I mean never. He struggled in last game, and he struggled shooting from the field, from the free throw line, from the three-point line, and overall just struggled as of late, not even just last game, but that's one of those things, is that you get him hot in one game and it carries on for the rest of the season. Yeah, good players go on slumps, and he was in a slump, but he fixed it, and he fixed it quick. It was only 2 games, and he's back in his rhythm, or at least hopefully back in his rhythm, and that's something the Hornets love to see from him.
And we'll have Wiley back in for the Lions. And for the Hornets, Braden Dalrymple checked in right there for Mason Burns. Flora with it. Guarded by Lefebvre. Ray Flora, a charge. Drives in. Blake Mitchell draws his second charge of the game. And both teams have drawn 2 charges. And you talked about how Coach Unruh liked the matchup where the Goddard Lions tend to drive in hard, and the Hornets could draw a lot of charges on it. Well, the Lions also said the same thing about the Hornets, and they're doing, Blake Mitchell especially, doing a great job of it for Goddard.
Well, and there goes Jacob Byrne hitting another three-point shot. And it looks like it'll be a timeout. So we'll be back here at Hornet Studios after a short commercial break. And we're back here. 24-15 is your score. 2 points allowed here in the second quarter. And I know that Coach Unruh got into these players' head. 2 points was the margin during after the first quarter. And he said it at the beginning of Wednesday's practice, respect your opponent. And in the first quarter, that's not what happened from this Hornets team. They thought they were going to come out and get an easy win. And I understand why they did, but you still have to respect your opponent. And they've clearly picked up on that in the second quarter and trying to run away with this lead.
And that was by Lefevre. A jumper right there. Brings it within 7. Here is Eli Isaacs. Into Byrne at the high post. Flora thought about the 3. Isaacs setting things up again. The Hornets trying to get into the middle of this zone. That's the best thing they can do against this 2-3 defense, as they run it in practice, or they've been running it in practice, trying to find the high post, and it should open up. If you get the ball in the middle, good things will happen if you're the Hornets. That was Flora who couldn't hang on to it, and then he comes the other way. Soren Carr got the steal, and then that'll be a foul called on Ray Flora. Checking back in for the Hornets is Mason Burns and Gabe Phillips as Flora heads to the bench. And Isaac's just getting his hands on every pass tonight. And he had talked to me about the steal record, and tonight he's come out. He just wants to shatter it in this game, as he already has 2 steals on the game. But every ball that is getting every ball that's passed by him, he's been able to tip. There's a steal right there. Coming the other way is Jacob Byrne, who got fouled for the Hornets, and that will be foul number 7. Jacob Byrne heading to the line, shooting a 1-and-1 for the Hornets. Byrne, an excellent free throw shooter. Back in for the Lions is number 32, Carter Morrill.
Well, here's the thing right now is Jacob Byrne having one of the games of his life, or at least the game to bring him out of a slump. He's got 14 points right now and on pace to get even more. And he can rely on the free throw line. He shot 90% so far on the year from the free throw line. Had an and one earlier that was really influential in getting this Hornets team on a run. And that's one of those things that I noticed about his free throw stance every single time, is that he just looks so calm at the free throw line. This is a shot that he takes hundreds and hundreds, maybe even thousands of times in the gym all the time, and it's just not a big deal for him. He goes up and sinks those regularly, and that's the guy. If you're Goddard, you don't want to foul, and if you're the Hornets, you want to see at the free throw line time and time again.
You know, Caleb, I did an interview one time with Jacob Byrne earlier on in the season, and one of the things that stuck out to me is before he leaves any practice, he gets up 100 shots from the free throw line and the three-point line. And that explains his shooting. Practice makes perfect is what everyone says. And Jacob Byrne works on his shot after almost every practice. And his shot is never different. He always has the same release, and there's sometimes it doesn't go in. Like you talked about, there was a shooting slump, but it wasn't in his form or anything like that. It was mental. And I know specifically some of the players like Eli Isaacs and Josh Dessenberger had talked to him about it and just wondering what was going on in his head. And tonight, he's just totally forgot about whatever it was, and he's coming out to play.
Well, and that's one of the things I talked about, Austin, is basketball is a long game and fast-paced game. And Byrne gets his another three, but you have to have a short memory, and Jacob Byrne fits the role of basketball player perfectly because he has that short memory. Yeah, a bad call. Yeah, 2 games where you make 1 3 out of those 2 games. That's a tough statistic to see, especially from a guy like him. But basketball, yet again, is a sport that needs short memory, short-term memory, and he's forgot about those already, and he's ready to move on in the game and in the season and continue to dominate.
After an official's timeout, looked like a bouncy ball went onto the floor. Soren Carr passed it in. Isaacs tipped it. He saved it into the hands of Lafleur. Moses out for 3, off the mark. Rebounded by Josh Dessenberger and the Hornets. Hornets pushing the floor. Byrne finds Byrne. He's feeling it. Jacob Byrne off the back of the rim. Rebounded by the Lions. 2:54 left to play in the first half. That's a 10-point lead for the Hornets. They cause another turnover right there.
Well, and that's the thing. If you're this Hornets team, you have to know that in order to run up the score, you have to be able to take advantage of mistakes because you know that this Goddard team is going to make a lot of mistakes. And so if you want to run up the score, if you want to make a statement win that intimidates your opponents, you have to be able to capitalize on every single opportunity that you get. And that was just simply getting in Goddard's head. They go from a 2-point deficit to a 10-point deficit in the matter of 6 minutes, and that's tough on a team. And there goes Jacob Byrne, assist by Burns, but they're in their head, and that was just a simple mental mistake. And the Hornets are doing everything to force those mental mistakes.
Well, we talked about Isaac's steal record that he's about to break. He's tied it right now. But another record that Jacob Byrne is on pace to shatter is the 3 points made in a season. And I'm not sure what the numbers are totally, but, you know, I've talked to him about it, and he is on pace to shatter it this season. And in this game, if he keeps it up, he may even break the single in-game 3 record, which I believe is 9 threes.
Well, and actually, Austin State, but that's one of those things is there's no better time to do it. You're getting into the second half. This is now officially the second half of the season because everyone you play from here on out is a team you've already played. And so it's officially the second half, and there's no better way. You not only are you starting off the second half on a good note, but you're also shattering a slump, and there's no better time to do it. There's no better time in his mind to do this right now, and he's perfectly on pace to do it.
Well, the Hornets are just toying with the Lions right now. They don't have a big enough lead, I don't think, to start doing some of those lob passes. But Braden Gray was open on that possession. He just couldn't convert. Byrne into Pons. Pons will be called for a charge. And Blake Mitchell must have took an acting class before this game because he's drawn 3 charges, and that one right there was very questionable, as it didn't even look like Pons put his shoulder down or anything. In for the Hornets is Braden Dalrymple, and it'll be Goddard ball. Lefevre in the middle, guarded by Isaacs and Dalrymple. Over to Wiley, inside Crawford, who had a big first half. Another charge called, this time Mason Burns draws it once again. He's a little shaken up after that, but he gets up on his own power. Walking down the court is Mason Burns. 32-19, our score. Hornets gone empty a couple possessions in a row now. Need to score and put some points on the board on this possession. Byrne over to Burns. Isaacs, Dalrymple. Mason Burns out for 3. He knocks it down. And Mason Burns hits the 3 for the Hornets with 1:20 left. Here comes the Lions.
And you know the Hornets are really dominating when everybody is scoring. And Mason Burns, a guy you said averages 1.4 points per game, not a big margin, but yet he's still managing to hit shots. He's shooting 14% from the three-point line on the season, and that's a tough margin to hit a shot from. But you know the Hornets are really just messing with him and toying around with him because they can. They're trying to figure out how they can win in big games, and this is more of film development than anything. They want to know what strategies they can use and what plays they can use, who they can rely on when it comes down to the wire to get it done in those big games.
Well, one thing about this Hornets squad is they do not take losing very easily. After every loss, especially these last two losses versus Andover and Eisenhower, they knew these were big games and these could really propel them to what they – I mean, even these guys they still think they have a shot in the state tournament. And those games would have been huge moving on, but they ended up losing them. So it's good to see them back at playing basketball and having fun. Basketball is just a fun game when you're winning, and in a game that there's still a lot of time left. 35-19 is not a massive blowout, but they're playing and having fun, and if they can keep that up, they still have the opportunity to win.
Well, in Austin, like you said, they are having a lot of fun, and if there's any way to develop a winning basketball program, it's by having fun on the basketball court. You have fun on the basketball court, you want to play more basketball. So because you're playing more basketball, you're getting more shots up in the gym, you're continually getting better over time, and so not only you're having fun on the court, you're getting better, which is big to see, and it develops a winning program. It creates an atmosphere in the school and in the program that we have a good basketball program here, and the expectation is high.
Well, Dalrymple turned it over on the other end. Moses ran the floor, and that'll be a foul called. They're going to call it before the shot, and that will be called on Mason Burns. That's his second personal. But Moses is at the line. He's shooting two because they did not count the bucket. The Goddard coach does not agree with that. He wants the and one. But with 11.5 seconds left, here are two free throws coming from Cameron Moses. His first one off the front of the rim. Back in for the Hornets is going to be Dessenberger as Braden Gray heads to the bench. And we got Cameron Moses' second attempt. That one straight through. It's a 15-point ball game. Hornets have an opportunity to score on the last possession heading into the locker room to extend a 15-point lead, or try to at least. Isaacs with it. He'll set up a play. Over to Mason Burns. Finds Isaacs. Eli Isaacs doesn't knock down the three, and tried to tip it in was Dessenberger, but it'll be a 15-point deficit for the Goddard Lions heading into the halftime. And your Hornets played a great 2 quarters of basketball. Let's see if they can put 2 more together after the break.
And we're back here at Hornet Studios. 35-20 your score at halftime. And a score that the Hornets want to extend their lead. And Jacob Byrne with 22 of the 35 points up to this point. And we've talked about him having a slump. No better way to break it than having a career performance right now. He has 5 threes on the game and looking to possibly break that three-point shots made in a game record, which would be incredible. And he talked about earlier in the season how his goal was to do it against Goddard the first time around, and he was on track to do it in the first quarter, but then just shut down and wasn't able to find anything after that. But he might possibly be able to do it if he keeps those three-point shots coming and keeps them consistent.
Well, it was Goddard ball to start out this second half. Missed shot by Crawford, and then here are the Hornets. Byrne off the mark from 3, off the backboard. He got his own rebound. Tries to find Phillips on the inside. Turnover right there for the Hornets. And that's one thing the Hornets have to fix if they want to keep winning this game and get on top by even more, as they're causing enough turnovers. This Goddard team has not been able to take care of the ball for many possessions, or most possessions in this ball game. But the Hornets got to take care of the ball themselves. And I know as a coach you love to see them causing turnovers, but you hate to see them giving the ball up, and really they should have a lot more points than 35 in this half, or in one half. But you're not complaining if you're Coach Unruh, because you are up by 15, and Byrne missed right there on the 3. Lefevre and the Lions up the floor to set up an offense.
Well, one thing that develops a winning program, and that was Carter Morrow, who got the bucket, his first points in the night. But one thing that develops a winning program, you see it in every sport, every winning program, is the expectation for perfection, And the Hornets, you can't settle for this right now. Sure, it may get you a win. Sure, maybe getting a few buckets might extend the lead enough to get a win. But if you want to create a winning program, you always have to have that drive for more, points. And that's what they expect out of themselves right now. A 13-point lead isn't good enough. A 20-point lead isn't good enough. A 30-point lead isn't good enough. They always need to be improving, and that's what develops a good basketball program. And so they can't settle for this. And not only that, but this is a statement win right here. They haven't played good basketball for 2 straight games, and so they need to find something to get them started. And Braden Gray with another alley-oop, is second on the game, but this can really affect their season and possibly trying to develop a winning program.
Well, that's his 3rd on the game, Braden Gray. But that play's been there all night if you're the Hornets, and you can't make that pass every time, or else the Lions will anticipate it. But, you know, right there, Jacob Byrne finds Braden Gray for a beautiful alley-oop, and Gray slams it home. On the inside, here is Blake Mitchell. He had a big first quarter. There he goes again. Gets the bucket to go, and 1. He'll be at the free throw line with 5:48 left in the 3rd. Mitchell's first free throw of tonight's matchup. And remember, he was not in the first matchup when the Hornets played Goddard the first time. He knocks down the free throw. Blake Mitchell does. A 12-point deficit for the Goddard Lions, and they will take a timeout. And after the break, we will see Moses back in for the Lions. After the timeout, it will be Valley Center ball. Looks like Goddard thought about putting pressure on, but they're not going to do it on this possession. Likely going to start doing it after makes, the Lions are. But here are the Hornets, set up an offense. Phillips found Isaacs. Byrne driving around the three-point line. He'll take a step back 3. Jacob Byrne off the front of the rim. And as Gabe Phillips got the rebound, second chance opportunity. He got fouled, and it'll be Hornet ball underneath their own bucket.
Well, I said never stop pushing, and I might be kind of contradicting myself right here, but I want to see the Hornets be a little bit more creative, and I love what they've done on the offensive side of the ball. They put together some big plays, but that's one of those things. You have a solid lead here, and so now you have some room to work with. You have some time to drop new plays, and that's one of those things as plays after timeouts are such big things. You can drop some really creative plays, and I like that play. It's something that I haven't seen before, a little bit of a different play, a different style. And so because they have that free reign, because they have that 14-point lead, they have the ability to be more creative on the offensive side of the ball, and you can practice a lot of different things and learn a lot of different things about your teammates and your team that will allow you to expand your horizon come later in the game or later in the season.
It'll be Hornet ball. And you talk about a 14-point lead. One thing I really admired about Eisenhower and Andover, as when they got up big on the Hornets in the second half, they didn't slow down or anything. And you talked about it, building a basketball program. You got to keep pushing. And you play like you did in the first half. The first half got you a 15-point win if you're the Hornets in the first half. So in the second half, you have to play just like you did, if not better, to try to win by, 15 or more. And there's a steal right there. Pons snags it out of the air. Marion Pons slows it down for the Hornets. Gabe Phillips and Isaacs will set up a play.
Well, every one of these players on the team is just a true basketball player, but Marion Pons brings something to this floor that this Hornets team hasn't had in a while. Just pure athleticism. On that play, on that steal, it almost appeared as though he was floating off the ground to grab that ball. The athleticism, the vertical, the speed, everything he does with so much athleticism that it's really hard to stop him on the offensive and defensive side of the ball. He's such a threat for this Hornets team and a guy that the Hornets need to rely on.
Well, Isaacs found Phillips, who found Isaacs once again, and Eli Isaacs drains the three from the corner. And he almost got a steal right there as Wiley made a dangerous pass to Crawford. Ray Flora will come up with a steal. Isaacs coming the other way. He'll lay it in. It looked like he wanted to go up for a dunk, but not sure if Isaacs can throw down in a game yet. And Soren Carr ends up with the ball off the tip pass. The Hornets making it hard for the Lions in the second half. Ray Flora a rebound, and that will be a jump ball. Possession goes to the Hornets.
And that's one of the things, I saw the same thing you did. He wanted to go for that dunk. That's the thing about developing a winning basketball team is you have to be disciplined, not only on turnovers, not only on fouls, but when it comes to that, you take the bucket. You have the opportunity to get the bucket. So rather than be flashy and get a dunk, I like the decision by Isaacs to make sure to get the sure-handed 2 points, the points that are going to guarantee you two, rather than trying to be flashy and possibly not getting those points.
And that will go out of bounds. Isaacs took a fast three right there, as it was kind of a heat check for him. He had it open, but he missed, and then the rebound, the ball was on the ground after the rebound. Flora had the ball go off of his foot, and so it'll be Goddard ball. The Hornets still putting on the pressure. LaFear found Wiley. He's trying to make something happen. Over to Hofer. Wiley working on Pons. Found Morrow. Great defense right there from Ray Flora. And it'll be Hornet ball.
Well, Ray Flora is not a big-name scorer, but I know one thing he brings to this court is defense, as you mentioned. He's an incredible defender, but also he brings so much leadership to this court. It's just incredible to see the effect he has on himself and his teammates. Being the student body president, he has the ability to get in people's heads and really inspire them to continue working, to continue pushing. And that's the kind of guy that the Hornets need in their basketball program more often. We need to see more faces and more personalities like that the kind of things he brings to the court. And that right there is how you develop a winning basketball program with so much leadership and so much inspiration like Ray Flora.
And that'll be Isaac's first. He knocks down. It's a 20-point lead. Stever, Crawford, and Morrow back in for the Lions. It'll be a over the back, excuse me. And it'll be Goddard ball. That foul was called on Marion Pons. That's his 4th personal. So he'll head to the bench with 3:09 left in the 3rd quarter. Here is Reaver. Got it stolen by Isaacs. And he couldn't hang on to it off the foot of Eli Isaacs. Looked like it may have gone off Caden Hofer's foot, but it will be Goddard ball. Crawford with it. Isaacs, another steal. Eli Isaacs goes up with his right hand off the mark. An offensive board. Phillips takes the 3 from the top of the key. Rolls in and out. Braden Dalrymple, another opportunity to score. He'll take a 3 of his own, and Dalrymple knocks it down. And the Hornets are just simply having fun right now as they have a commanding 23-point lead. And in the 3rd quarter, at the beginning of the 3rd quarter, they let up for about 1 to 2 minutes. And now they're playing good, solid basketball once again. Isaacs will head to the bench for Byrne. We'll have a timeout called by the Lions. It'll be a full timeout. We'll be back when play resumes. And after the timeout, on the floor for the Hornets is Dalrymple, Phillips, Dessenberger, Byrne, and Mason Burns. It will be Goddard Lion ball. Crawford set to pass it in once again for the Lions. Crawford almost got past Phillips, but he'll be called for a foul. Phillips will. That is his 3rd personal. 16 fouls in this half for the Hornets. Part of it is because of what Gabe Phillips just tried doing right there, and that's trying to steal every pass that comes his way. That was Morrow who missed. Crawford with the finish, and Crawford is one of the only players that's been able to score consistently for this Goddard team. Byrne thought about the 3, faked Morrow out, and here is Mason Burns setting up a play for the Hornets.
Well, we've seen in the past with the Hornets in years past is it's tough to win basketball games when you can't finish, and that's something this Goddard team struggles to do. I saw a specific possession that really summed it up. They had 3 offensive boards before they were able to score, and it was just simply getting the board and putting it right back up. They weren't able to make simple layups with the basket right in front of their face, and that's why they're 1-12. That's why they've lost to some of the small schools that they've lost to, is because they struggled to finish. We've seen the Hornets do that in the past, and considering they're athletic people, as we talked about, an athletic program, you think they'd be strong enough to finish, but it just doesn't always work like that, and that's why the Hornets have dominated on the defensive side of the ball.
Dalrymple, another point underneath the basket. Inside, Hofer gets blocked by Braden Gray. Isaacs up the court. Phillips finds him, and then Isaacs lost it. He saved it, finds Dalrymple, and the ball finally goes out of bounds off of Blake Mitchell's hand. It will be Hornet ball on their own side of the court. Jacob Byrne set to check it in for the Hornets. Isaac's pass denied by Reavers, but here is Jacob Byrne. At time off from 3. And with 1:05 left in the third quarter, the score is 50-27, and the Hornets can keep this pace up. They're going to have a commanding victory on their hands.
Well, Jacob Byrne, we talked about him in the first half, and that's one of those things is he had 22 in the first half. Just an incredible performance to try to break that slump. But the one thing he continues to struggle with, he can hit threes as Isaacs gets another layup, but he can hit threes in the first half of the game at an incredible rate. We saw 5 3-point shots made by him in that first half. But the thing he struggles with is the second half, along with the rest of this Hornets team. And getting those buckets consistently can really change his team and the rest of his team for the better if he can consistently knock down those shots. He had time to make a sandwich and make that shot, and when he doesn't make those kind of shots, that's tough to see from him. But we know that something mentally just changes when it's in the second half because he doesn't hit as many shots. He doesn't take as many shots either, and that's just over time. Hopefully that'll develop for Byrne because it can be a big factor in the long run.
And Jacob Byrne knocks the 3 down to end the third quarter. It is a commanding 55-29 lead for your Valley Center Hornets. Coming up, we'll have the fourth and final quarter here in this boys varsity matchup. It will be Soren Carr and the Goddard Lions ball to start this fourth and final quarter. Here is Isaacs guarding Wiley inside. And Wycliffe gets the bucket to go for Goddard.
And Wycliffe, as we talked about, this is a very big Goddard team. And Wycliffe, for the first half, he wasn't even suited out, but yet he comes in here and he's able to get an easy bucket just because of positioning. And seeing that Wycliffe wasn't in this game for the first half, it really changes a lot of my perspective of this Hornets team and the victory that they've mastered to get. And Jacob Byrne knocks down a 3, but they've been without one of their biggest postmen so far in this game, and that's Wycliffe.
Here is Lefevre off on the 3. Braden Dalrymple, a rebound. Here's Dalrymple with it right there. You know, Coach Unruh showed pretty good sportsmanship right there as the student section for the Hornets, which we talked about earlier. The Hornets travel well, and, you know, when you have this big of a lead, some of those students were chanting air ball at Lefevre, and, you know, Coach Unruh showed great sportsmanship to try and calm them down and just be like, don't say anything stupid, don't start any fights. But if you are Valley Center, you know, especially building a winning basketball program, these are the type of games you just go in and you win big. And Hornets can't stop now as Ray Flores is still playing aggressive. He missed his free throw, went after the ball, but it will be, it'll be Valley ball.
Well, I heard Coach Unruh refer to this trip as a business trip, and that's exactly what it is. You go in there, get your business done, and you be as professional as possible. And I know that he can't control the students, and that's just student section, but he wants to be as professional as possible because with a winning program comes being very humble. Eli Isaacs drains a three, but that right there, being humble is how you develop a winning program.
And that was like a circus act right there as Pons was falling, got it to Byrne. Byrne found, that was Flora he got it to, and then Flora found Isaacs for three. And that's been the definition of tonight's game. Hornets, everything going right for them, and they're playing fun, high energetic basketball. It was Wycliffe on the inside who got fouled. He'll be at the free throw line with a 30-point deficit.
Well, and that's one of those things when you have a solid lead, a 30-point lead right now. As you said, the Hornets can have fun with basketball now. Basketball becomes much more fun of a game when you have a commanding lead like this. You can have acrobatic plays like that. You can make big, flashy plays because that's having fun on the basketball court. And with a big lead like this, that's something they can do. And if it doesn't work out, they can still afford to miss it.
And off the mark right there from Wycliffe. Here come the Hornets. Dalrymple drives in with the left hand. He got fouled by Carr. And Dalrymple's headed to the free throw line. Nice drive, baseline drive from Braden Dalrymple right there. Crawford, Morrow, Mitchell, and Reavers all set to check in for the Lions right now, along with number 12, Caden Hofer.
23, Stever, and 12, Hofer.
And on the floor for the Hornets is Pons, Dessenberger, Dalrymple, Flora, and Burns. Dalrymple's second off the mark. That ball goes out of bounds off of, I believe, number 4, Marion Pons. And it will be Goddard ball. Flora keeping the pressure alive. Or, as I say that, coach tells him to back off. Mitchell had a big first quarter, hasn't been done much since. He found Hofer, who missed the shot. Here is Flora and the Hornets. And it'll be a sub-in timeout. Clock is still running. We will have number 15, Hunter Stacy, number 32, Noah Simmons, and number 11, Cade Wilson into the game. And we've seen a couple of these players. I think we've seen all of them at least once in this season. But, usually it's late in the game. And tonight, these guys will get good, valuable minutes. Noah Simmons being one of them who's had pretty good minutes when he comes in. He missed right there. It was Cade Wilson who missed, and Marion Pons gets the bucket to go and one. He's at the free throw line. Marion Pons, not the best free throw shooter in the world, but he is at the line for the Hornets with a 31-point lead.
Well, that's the thing, Austin, is that there he goes making that free throw when he needs it. Gets the end one. But you're up by a solid margin, that being 32 points after Pons' make. And to all the varsity players, this doesn't mean anything. You can go out there and you can have acrobatic plays. You can have fun on the basketball court, and it won't mean anything to you. But here for these 3 JV players suiting up on varsity, that being Cade Wilson, Hunter Stacy, and Noah Simmons, these are so valuable minutes because these are players who next season are looking to get those varsity roles, at least a backup spot, and if not a starting spot is their goal. And so these are very valuable, getting minutes on that varsity floor, feeling the competition and the atmosphere of that varsity floor. It does so much for these players in development and in the long run.
Foul on number 23 for the Lions, his first, team 7. Dessenberger at the line, shooting.
Dessenberger at the line. He'll be shooting 2 for the Hornets. Running clock, 2:05 left. Dessenberger's first bounces off the rim. Have an opportunity at the line once more. And he knocks it down. a 65-34 lead. And we're getting, I believe, chants from the student section. And if you're Valley Center, after dropping 2 straight against good teams, this is a much-needed victory and a much-needed blowout for these guys. Dessenberger running the floor, and he makes the layup. Dessenberger, we know he can slam it home. If he was just a little bit ahead of some of them Goddard boys, he could have put the exclamation point on the night, but he makes the layup instead. Here is Hofer off the backboard in. And a minute to play left in this contest.
Well, being at every one of the Hornets practices, I've only seen Josh Dessenberger dunk twice, and it shows you how humble of a player he is. At 6'7", dunking, he can almost dunk without even jumping, or hardly jumping at all, and that just shows you how humble of a player he is. He wants to develop that humble type of program because, sure, dunking is flashy and it gets a lot of momentum and it looks cool on your part, but in the end, it's not taking those sure-handed points, and I love that discipline by Josh Dessenberger that he brings to this Hornets team. 25 seconds remain, and looks like this JV team or some of the JV players will try and run out the clock, and a good victory it was. 31 points is the current margin, and some good minutes by these JV players. As I talked about, there's going to be a lot of development in the long run. And looks like it'll be about all for tonight. 67-36, your final score. And buzzer hits triple zeros. That's all for Hornet Studios. We'll see you back here on Tuesday. I'm Caleb Rose, joined us alongside by Austin Kosh. And we'll see you next time. Have a great night.